And it's also okay to say, can you lick me here? Can you
Yes.
fondle my balls? Like, I really love that. Like, the more specific you can be in talking,
Mhm.
it helps the other person. Generally people want to please. I mean, they're doing things because they want you to feel good.
Welcome back to Talking About the Taboo. When you hear the words sex therapy, what comes to mind? A last resort, something secretive, or maybe just positions and techniques? Let's clear that up because today we're breaking that stigma wide open. Joining us today is Dr. Christina McDowell, an ASEC certified sex therapist who works with clients in both Los Angeles and Kansas City. She's passionate about helping people embody the pleasure they're seeking and becoming their own best sexperts. Her approach is grounded in the belief that everyone deserves a happy, healthy, and fulfilling intimate life. Isn't that the truth? And that healing and growth are possible for everyone, no matter where you're starting from. In this episode, we're diving into sex therapy and how it's still stigmatized, and how intersectionality shapes our sexual experiences, and why therapy for intimacy is just as vital as therapy for anxiety or depression. Spoiler. It's not just about sex positions, it's about the emotional safety and communication and self awareness and pleasure that's on your own terms. Then we're going to get, practical. We're going to give you those real pleasure tips you definitely did not learn in class. We're going to talk about cunnilingus. We're going to talk about blowjobs. We're going to talk about finger play and tackling what I like to call the orgasm epidemic. Why is the female orgasm still treated like a mystery? And how can we empower people who have never had one? We'll also zoom out a little bit and get a little political, exploring how systems like patriarchy and misogyny impact everyone's sexual identity, regardless of gender or orientation. Dr. McDowell helps us unpack how power structures show up in the bedroom, in the therapy room, and society at a large, and what it really means to deconstruct them in our everyday lives. And of course, we couldn't resist stirring the pot with a little taboo talk. Questions to Clit-municate. Can you really break a penis? Does pineapple actually make things taste better? And who decided sex is only real if it ends a certain way? We're busting myths, challenging outdated scripts, and calling bullshit on what we thought we knew about sex and pleasure as a whole. So, whether you're curious, healing, or just here for the juicy stuff, this is the episode where curiosity is hot and the facts are even hotter. Let's talk about the taboo. Remember, Clit-municate. Quick disclaimer, if you're hearing some very aggressive background noise while we were recording, no, that's not a part of our intense pleasure segment. That's just a jackhammer outside. Apparently, the universe wanted to add its own take on rhythmic pounding. You're welcome. Welcome back to Talking About the Taboo. Let's face it, all of us have Googled something at 2 o'clock in the morning and have regretted it, and that is me. But thankfully, we have a real expert here today, Dr. Christine McDowell, to prove all of those Googling bullshit wrong. Hey,
Hi there.
how are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
So, today we're going to really dive into the topics of sex therapy as a whole. And I just want to ask you, what is your favorite thing about being a sex therapist? And how did you get to that career aspiration?
When I look back at the trajectory of my life, I've always really liked to be in the trenches with people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, historically, I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and then went on later and got my PhD. So, social workers work with um, people who are, marginalized, disenfranchised populations in really tough times of people's lives. And
Yeah.
I've always found so much meaning from that. So when I became a therapist, I really noticed that my clients didn't have a place to turn to talk to about sex. I think I was in Kansas City at the time. There were maybe two sex therapists in Kansas City. And
Wow.
I certainly referred to them because when people started talking about sex, I didn't know what advice to give them. I didn't know the research.
Mm.
I had my own biases and my own um, pain and sexual shame that I was stuck in myself. So I was almost very happy to refer them on because it made me really nervous.
Hmm.
Didn't want to create harm. And so just had some personal experiences of maybe kind of like an awakening or awareness like, wow, sex is really this beautiful part of being a human.
Hmm.
I think we need more people in our community who are skilled and certified. Like we need more sex therapists, and so then I went through the process of getting certified. So I love talking to people about the areas that where we do have shame and we do have vulnerability, and I mean, sex really is kind of the spice of life. I mean, it's
Absolutely.
one area where we can play and in a way that we can't in other areas of our life. It's a way to express love and joy and creativity. So it's a very unique aspect of our humanness.
And I think sex therapy is a spice, as you call it, that many of us don't use, don't know much about. It's very stigmatized. And I really want to hear more about why you think that is and why we lack so many sex therapists or therapists that specialize in sex.
Like the first part of your question, like
Hmm.
it being stigmatized.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we, like a friend told me a while back, everyone has an opinion about sex. And it's really kind of true. It might
Mm-hmm.
be sex positive, it might not be. Um, but everyone has an opinion about sex. And of course, religion, the patriarchy,
Hmm.
misogyny, racism, white body supremacy, so many of the isms that we live and are raised within are baked into who we are as people,
Hmm.
baked into our cultures, they're baked into our laws, into our policies.
Yeah.
It's there's no way around that. So if someone happens to have, depending on their personality, their mental health status, the relationships they've had, how they feel about their body, media also gives us very skewed ideas of what sex is. We just kind of merge into adulthood, kind of like trying to figure it out without any sex ed, and even being a sex therapist. I mean, there's like people have an idea about what that means about me, you know.
Yes, that's something that I really wanted to dive in because people think that, oh, okay, so you're fucking your clients. No. People say, oh, okay, so you're like actually giving them a blowjob and then watching them do it with their partner. No, like this is therapy. So has that ever been a complication for you? And people are like asking for your service, and they think that like you're a prostitute. Like, is that what they think?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of us in my field do get those emails that are questionable or also just downright creepy, that are sexual harassment, sex offenses, that come across in terms of requests for services. Some people do think that sex therapists watch, like a football coach, we're watching and coaching along, which is not what we're doing. It's not a touch therapy at all. It's just a talk.
Mhm,
We're talk therapist, just
mhm,
like any other therapist. Everybody has their clothes on. I work
mhm,
virtual. We're just talking about explicit, intimate, personal topics, but no one is having sex. I don't want to see people's body parts. Um,
mhm.
that's my role, is to talk through and problem solve what's going on.
Yeah.
Then the public perception socially sometimes can be, when they find out you're a sex therapist, then it's like there's an assumption that you're um, I mean, I'm totally kink positive, but there's an assumption that you're swinging from the chandeliers and anything goes and you're up for
Mhm.
it. So I've had experiences where people make an assumption, just because I do this, like just like everybody else, I have preferences and boundaries. I asked a friend once, I'm like, what do you think that means that I'm a sex therapist? He said that you're a voyeur. I'm like, because you
Oh.
talk to people about sex. I'm like, oh,
Huh.
wow. So I started at one point, like asking people in my life. So, like, hey, I become a sex therapist. What do you think this means about me?
When people just like ask those deep questions and they want to know more, and I love that they're curious about it, but I think they're curious about it for the wrong reasons. And that's definitely a struggle, and that's like adding on to like just the sexuality epidemic as a whole. But when they come up to me, they're like, oh, so like you have sex all the time and you're really good at it and you know everything about it. I go, actually no, it's just the fact that I have a curious mind and I'm willing to learn, and I think that I am willing to put the effort towards my sex life as I am towards my relationship, as I am towards my career. And I have made it my career because I love talking about it. So
Right.
I love that we're here destigmatizing that, because it is stigmatized in every conversation that I have with everybody. And it's a struggle to fight for a normal conversation about it, because sex can be talked about at the dinner table. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
just so normal. Sex therapy is considered not normal medicine yet. And when do you think and how do you think that's going to transition into more of an ideal therapy?
Mm, I do think the trend is changing. I mean, I have several physician groups that refer to me,
Love it.
urologists, OB-GYNs, pelvic floor physical therapists, because they're realizing that um, we have to work in a biopsychosocial model, so address the biology, address the body, the chemistry, the hormones or whatever, the psychology, and then the social piece, like what's going on in the relationship. How were you raised? Are you in a religion? What's going on in our culture?
So going back into kind of the topic of sex therapy and how it just like is not normal medicine, and how it's not prioritized in health discussions. So sex education in school really does like maybe like a week long of sex education, and that doesn't even include anything besides like going over protection and harm reduction. What do you think would be the best education source for individuals in high school? How do you think it should be like kind of structured?
That's such a good question. I don't work with teens anymore,
Mhm.
but when I did, I still worked with teens when I was becoming a sex therapist. So they would come in and say, "So I know my parents brought me in for this, but I also saw that you're
Mm.
studying to be a sex therapist. So I have a lot of questions." So kids need help critically thinking
Yeah.
what they're seeing online, what that means, what they think sex is, why they want to have sex, like what are their own personal reasons behind it outside of peer pressure or I'm supposed to. Obviously, consent is important, pleasure is important. Like
Yeah.
understanding that sex is for their pleasure, especially if you think
Yes.
for people with vulvas who get the message, I mean, haven't we all gotten the message since the beginning of time that women's bodies are for male pleasure and now
Mhm.
male control
Mhm.
for our bodily autonomy? So that's super important.
Yeah.
And to know our own bodies, to know where the clitoris is, to
Yeah.
know how how your own body, what feels good to your own body. And if someone is asexual, knowing that, like knowing what all
Mhm.
the options are and that it's all normal. If someone has a fetish or is kinky, that is all
Yes.
normal. If a body part doesn't work the way you would like,
Mhm.
that also can be normal and there are resources for that.
Yeah.
Imagine what that would be like if guys and like all bodies were taught. Some people have pain, some people are not able to have penetration, some people
Yep.
are not do struggle with erections, some people have delayed ejaculation. These are all things in the normal realm of what bodies do. So maybe let's stop using the word dysfunction and just say it might be disappointing, but there's other ways around it.
Yes.
I mean, imagine if teenagers and college kids got that information so that when it does happen, they're like, I remember we talked about this.
Yeah, and like, can we stop just throwing condoms at teenagers and college students? And how about we give them a condom, but also explain, like, hey, this, that, and the other goes along with sex. Pleasure is a part of sex. Like, sometimes it doesn't always, they just like throw protection in our faces. And I love that. I really, really do. I think harm reduction is definitely necessary, but we're not going into the detailed dynamics that we need to. And I hope in the future to see that. And I have like this like vision in my head for my future, right? And it does entail giving proper sex education of some sort to younger individuals. But the problem is that there is religion expectations and there is those ideals that parental parents don't want their children knowing about that, and I have to respect it. I have to. That's just how it is. And so I hope that there'll be like some type of like a consent form for, in sex therapy. So this entire month we are focusing on sex. This is what we're going over. We're going over pleasure tips, we're going over harm reduction, we're going over anatomy, and we're going over sexual disorders and things like that. And so please sign off if you're okay. If not, they'll go into a separate classroom and work on like doing like something with health related, just something like that. I really hope to see a shift in that. I really, really do, hopefully. But
Yeah, wouldn't it be great? I think it's in the Netherlands. They have sex ed is one whole year in high school,
mhm,
and it's co-ed, and everybody, like,
love
you
it.
have all genders meeting for a year
Mhm,
for health class, and they go into all of that,
love
and they
it.
get to have conversations together, and they get to talk, and they get to hear each other's questions.
I'm jealous of the Netherlands.
Yeah.
um I I don't for me, why I started this entire idea of sex education and sex coaching and just the entire just passion for it was due to just like the openness that my family always had about talking about sex. We did talk about sex at the dinner table, and I just noticed that when I was talking to my friends, they were super standoffish about it until they opened up a little bit. Definitely used comedy. So how I educate is through comedy, right? Like, I know that there is a teacher, I forgot where she's at, but she used to show up to school in like a sperm dress or something. And then she would dress up as like a gigantic condom for Halloween. And that adds sex sells. All right. That's just the honesty of it. When she showed up in a gigantic condom, hello, we're going to listen to somebody dancing or sitting and talking. You know what I mean? So, I think we just need to add a little bit more, spaz into it and hope for a change.
Yes.
But people just don't take the time to understand it, and don't take the time to think outside of, oh, sex is just, one position. So I kind of want to transition into talking about sex positions too, because a lot of people think that, the one way is the only way. And so I kind of want to go over sex positions and how they make the woman's body feel. So give me a little bit of spaz with that.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to start off with like the jackhammer only because that's what's happening outside my door unexpectedly today. Something led me to kind of like go to public porn sites, and I'm like, let me just see kind of like, I want to see like the patterns, see if I can notice patterns. And I was noticing that the cadence for fucking was the same. Everybody was doing the same rhythm. It was like
Mm,
I was like counting it out in the same pace, and it was all jackhammer. Like all the women were being jackhammered, video after video after video after video. It was this exact same pacing. Um, and then I thought, um, I mean, sometimes there can be a place and time for that, but when that
yeah.
is someone's the only way they show up is
Hmm.
to, is to pound, 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 and that's their only. There's no changing it up. And then
Hmm.
I interviewed casually, just like about 20 women, and I'm like, "Do you like jackhammer?" And every single one of them, they're like, "Oh my god, no!" And all the guys are showing up. That's like all they're doing because that's what is seen. Porn is being used as education versus it's entertainment. It is fast and furious. It is cut for the camera. Everything has to be very exaggerated.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of jackhammering, that's one thing. And I think, again, having consent and conversations with your partner, like what kind of pacing do you want? And there are times somebody might like slow and sensual touching or penetration, or faster. Let your partner tell you, or it's okay to speak up and ask for changes.
Let's slide right in to our next segment. Yep, you guessed it. It's time for the sex toy of the week. This one's for those of you who love a little rhythm with your romance and aren't afraid to take pleasure into your own hands, which I know that if you're watching this podcast, you have no problem doing. We're going to keep sipping on all the juicy topics that make life a little more interesting today by sharing this lovely sex enhancing beverage. So I tried something new. It's a sex enhancing drink called Cloud9, and let me tell you, the name's it's not far off at all. It's designed to boost arousal and heighten sensitivity. And yes, your girl put it to the test last night. It's marketed as a natural way to boost arousal, energy, and connection. And I had to give it a try. It's in the name of research, of course. So, first impression on this drink. I went for the berry flavor and it gave like a pregame cocktail type energy. It's fruity, smooth, and there's no weird aftertaste. Definitely tastes a little bit different than an energy drink would, but I would still put it with that. It's totally something you could sip solo or like mix into like a mocktail of any sort. So within about like 30 to 45 minutes in, I definitely started feeling warm and a glowy vibe. Not really sure if that's like placebo. But it's definitely under that energy drink. It's a slow burn kind of arousal though. My body felt alive. It felt a little like extra, oof. And it's definitely changed my mentality. It's definitely a perfect drink to get you out of your head and into your body. And it's great alone, but it's also probably best with a partner. We both drank it half and half. I got it actually from Spencer's. This drink was $9. Definitely a pricier drink. So if you're curious about adding something playful and natural to your foreplay routine, foreplay still exists, y'all, and you just want to feel yourself, feel a little bit deeper in your body, I definitely say give Cloud9 a try. I would give it a solid 8.5 out of 10 for me. I think that this drink, like I said, might just be a placebo effect. But hey, if the placebo works and the placebo works, it has 9 elements in it, and one of which includes B vitamins. So, I mean, energy, there's also caffeine in it. So, I mean, if this works, it works.
Positions, obviously, there's cowgirl, which is woman on. We're talking about heterosexual sex, woman on top, reverse cowgirl, a woman on top facing away. This can be really pleasurable. Missionary style is great.
Mhm,
Scissor style is great. And for like couples who are with same sex, there's even like sides. Like not all guys like to be top or bottom.
mhm.
There's side.
I want to talk about the issue with 69ing.
Yeah.
So, what are alternate ways that couples, either, heterosexual, homosexual couples, can implement 69ing without it being so fucking uncomfortable?
Yeah. It's so when we're having sex, it takes a skill called attunement,
Mhm.
which is
Uh,
being able to attune to one's own body
mhm.
while simultaneously attuning to another body.
Yes, difficult.
That's hard, right? Sometimes we get so immersed in our own body, we're not connected to the person we're with. Sometimes we're so hyper fixated on where the other person is, we don't know where we are in our own arousal cycle. We kind of dissociate.
Yes.
So 69 is requiring that skill of being attuned to where the other person is simultaneously by where you are yourself. It can be very uncomfortable. And I
Yeah.
think some people feel like it's kind of overrated. Like
Mhm.
they're supposed to like it, but honestly, it is uncomfortable. I mean, I think if people are into that, you can definitely sometimes laying side by side.
Mhm.
No one is supporting their body weight on top or
Vice versa.
squished on the bottom, right? But I think, and it also depends on body size. It depends on flexibility.
Yeah, if you as long as like whatever is comfortable for you, I'm definitely the type of person that is just like totally think that 69ing is overrated. Obviously, there's ways to help it, but I always say like if it's a heterosexual, I say, hey, do you have a dildo? And then they're like, yeah, okay. Do you have a dildo that has a suction cup on it? I think so. Okay, perfect. So stick that dick on the wall, fuck it while you suck him off. There you go. You're both getting pleasure at the same time. Because I just feel like 60, I know it's about oral, but it's very difficult. And that's just a personal way that I've been able to get pleasure and give pleasure with not being so focused on the uncomfortability, especially because I have a disability with my knee, so I can't fully bend my knee. So I think sex and disability is also a topic, and it's so ableized. I think sex is just really ableized, and I just wanted to hear a little bit about your opinion on ableism in sex and just sex and disability as a whole.
And I'm really glad you are bringing that up.
Oh,
Um, I I mention that a lot of times to people that um, our sexuality is baked into it's part of our humanness from the time we're born until the time we die.
mm-hmm.
And all we see on TV or commonly in public porn sites are certain types of bodies.
Yep.
But I mean, one time at one of our ASEC conferences, we had there was a group of people that did a whole workshop on this. Like there are pole
Wow.
dancing competitions for people in wheelchairs. It was
Mm-hmm.
so phenomenal to see, like
Yeah.
this video. And I mean, there are dildos you can buy that strap onto, someone's thigh if they have limited mobility or they're in a wheelchair. They can put that on, their partner can hop on and ride. That way, if
Love
they
it.
have paraplegia or they're not able to get an erection themselves,
Mm-hmm.
they can have great pleasure seeing their partner in pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
There are adaptive toys. They're on, I don't have a list of websites right now for people that are, like small. I went to a workshop once. Um, I don't know the politically correct term, but like people that are small and have just, have spine issues or
Mm-hmm.
their arms are too short to reach their genitals. There are vibrators with extensions.
Yep.
Thank goodness. I mean, we have glasses, we have hearing aids.
Yep.
There's nothing wrong with having adaptive devices for sex,
Yes.
sex pillow, but also specialized devices for each body. Um,
Mm-hmm.
why not?
Yes.
It's a part of who we are. You don't have to stop having sex just because you have a disability. You just have to do workarounds.
Exactly. And there is this TikToker, I'll share it in the description below, but it's a couple, it's a heterosexual couple, and he's in a wheelchair and they do videos of how they get it on. And they show the pillow, they show the penis pump, they show it all, of course, with clothes on and whatnot, but they answer those uncomfortable questions. And that is why I built this forum is to dive deeper into the taboo topics. And I think sex and disability really is. There's a book that I'm going to start reading. It's called Sex and Disability. I forgot the author, but I'll share it. But it really dives into though that ableism ideal and how there is devices made to help individuals. And also, I think that it's like body dysmorphia too, because like we see a lot of other individuals having sex, right? Porn is for entertainment, but people use it for education, like you said. Someone who is disabled, right, or in a wheelchair or has cerebral palsy, they're seeing sex this way. And so when they have sex and it's not that way, their libido mentally, boom, right straight to the ground because they don't feel like they're doing it right. They don't, if someone who is disabled is with someone who is not, sometimes they feel a lack of discomfort or inconfidence because they're like, you could easily go out and have sex with somebody who isn't in a wheelchair and you don't have to lift up and put on the bed. But love is so worth fighting for. And there is a lot of OnlyFans creators that also built their platform on being disabled. And honestly, for some people, it's a kink. I'm gonna be honest with you. It is. So, and I don't know where that stems from. I definitely that's deeper in their core desires. I know individuals that have like a disabled parent sometimes actually have a kink for that. So it's definitely like a conversation to dive deeper into. But I love that you had an opinion on that. And I just think that we should talk more about it as a whole.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, none of us know what's going to happen with our health
Mm-hmm.
tomorrow or
Yep.
next week or next year, you know.
Yes. Yes. And just building comfortability around talking about it prepares us. I'm always like, hope for the best, prepare for the worst type of person. Maybe that's my anxiety, but I just love that we're talking about it. I kind of want to dive too into more pleasure tips about, people always ask like, oh, I can't give a blowjob correctly, or oh, I hate fingering, or ew, I don't like getting head. I feel like I smell. He doesn't do it right. So I really want to dive into some pleasure tips about blowjobs and head and just that overall idea.
A friend of mine is a sex coach, and we were talking, and she had done some research, and she had interviewed about it was either 1,300 or 1,500 women who sleep with men,
Mm-hmm.
and a large majority of them said that they had experienced pain. That was a pretty common experience. Other surveys have shown that women who sleep with men have experienced pain, like it's something like 2/3 of them in the last sexual encounter.
Hmm.
So, fingering, especially, can be one thing if the person fingering doesn't have the same body parts, can be too rough and too
Yes.
fast, use too much pressure.
Yes.
Um, and in her survey, women said they tried to course correct once, and then the guy would go back to the technique that was painful. She'd say something a second time, and there might be a correction, but then he would go back to what he was doing. And she would say something about maybe a third time, and then she would think, just never mind. So
Mm.
I I see that a lot in my practice where women tolerate pain. They don't want to make the guy defensive. They don't want to upset him. They don't want to interrupt the flow of things. It's
Yeah.
we're conditioned that our bodies are for their pleasure. So women tough it out. Um, and then eventually they're like, I don't like oral. I don't like fingering
Yep. Yep.
because it's been painful. It's been uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's caused abrasions. They're
Especially
hurt.
if they don't cut their nails. That's a huge thing.
Yeah,
Hygiene.
wash wash your hands. If it's
Yes.
not clean enough to go in your mouth, it's not clean enough to go in the vagina.
Yeah, like, you're eating chicken wings and then you go home and have sex. I am a huge advocate, okay? I tell my man all the time, I don't care. Sometimes he doesn't wash his hands after the bathroom. I think some of us forget, and males in general, I feel like, because I didn't get pee on my hand, I don't need to wash my hands. Yes, you do, because you're about to either put your fingers in my mouth to fish hook me, or you're about to like shove your fingers down my throat, and then I'm gonna get a throat infection of some sort. I'm gonna get sick. So you are washing your hands, because there ain't no way I'm about to get hot sauce in my vagina. That's just not happening.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. You don't want to have jalapeno poppers and then have oral sex.
Exactly. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness.
And so I think and see, again, that could be a part of things that could be a part of sex ed. There's a
Mm-hmm.
really good book that I have up here by Natasha Elskari, and she wrote a book called Mama Sutra, and she wrote it for her 16-year-old son and kind of with him about how to be
Ooh,
a lover. And
okay.
there's a whole chapter on hygiene,
Oh, I
like
love that.
keep your lips soft, get those
Yes.
calluses off your feet, clip your toenails, clip your fingernails, keep the nails scrubbed.
Oh my
You
gosh.
know,
I need to read that.
wash your balls.
Please.
It's really there are things that it's like I want to help you show up in a way
Mm-hmm.
where you're pleasing to your partner.
Yeah.
So it's a really lovely book I recommend it to parents who have um, boy kids. Like, if you want to teach them about sex, this is a really good sex ed book.
Yeah.
Blowjobs. I was just reading a post that I'm on Facebook, and people were like asking and giving tips on blowjobs. Like, do you
Love
guys
it.
do you guys like suction? Overall, yes. It's an area I think people can feel uh, insecure about.
Hmm.
Obviously, talking, asking for feedback.
Yes,
Sometimes people are uncomfortable giving feedback. They'll
that's true.
say, everything you're doing is fine. This is all good. But boy, if you can be really specific,
Hmm.
it helps the person who's giving pleasure, it helps build their confidence. Like, I like it when you do that. That feels really
Yeah.
good. Keep on going.
Yeah.
So suction is great, using hands is great, you can use hands and mouth at the same time. Some people like to use a lot of spit or to add lube into the mix as well.
Hmm.
You can even get
Flavored.
flavored lube that you can use to make it more favorable. Some people have like a shallow gag reflex.
Hmm.
So nothing wrong with doing a shallow blowjob and then using your hands for the rest of it.
Hmm.
You know,
Yes. Double hand play. Yeah.
going in circles or um, really. And I think, you can get feedback either through the person's body language
Hmm.
or verbal, the moaning and stuff, but also just telling each other. That feels really good.
So, what would you say to somebody who's just like, I feel like I just can't give a blowjob correctly because he keeps saying that my teeth are hurting him? What advice would you give him or
Yeah.
her?
Well, in the moment, if it's hurting, I'm a big proponent of don't tolerate it.
Hmm.
Like, you need to speak up and not endure the pain to wait till later until it's a better time. I mean, that is the right time to. You can, use just like be, by redirecting the hand. It can be
Yeah.
nonverbal to lesser pressure, more. You can just say lighter. Um, so just kind of that coaching, or I need to stop or slow down, or I need to switch positions, or
Hmm.
um, try it this way. There are ways to communicate in the moment that's brief and just with one or two words. But yeah, afterwards, like if you're on a walk, yeah,
Hmm.
if you're running an errand together and you're in the car, it's like, um, yeah, just to preface, like, this doesn't need to be a big deal, or I don't want to take a long time. But
Hmm.
yeah, like the fingering thing, like I was noticing that for me, that what I recommend people start with what they like.
Yes. Hmm.
Like, I think,
Sandwich.
I think what my body likes and what I want to explore next time is when you finger me, to go really slow and to go really light and really describe it. And I know that can feel weird or uncomfortable. And
Yeah.
sometimes we've had people say, why should I need to talk about sex? It's like, because that's how we communicate, is through our words.
Yeah.
It can also be erotic, like, because you're kind of painting the picture of what you would like.
Foreplay starts early in the morning or late at night for the next day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. And generally, I mean, if you have a good, kind, compassionate partner, they're going to be okay. Like, thank you for telling me.
Yeah. And I think part of, aftercare is going over what you liked, what you disliked, what you want to change, what you want to add. Just being, because part of relationships is that sex factor and going over like, hey, I think we're doing amazing. Just yesterday, my boyfriend and I went to a couples therapy session with my therapist, but we kind of add him in sometimes. And he had talked about how he feels like he needs more reassurance that he's doing it right, because I have more partners than him. Not that that matters, but in his mind, it kind of does. So he feels as if he needs more reassurance. And so I think that is a great time, either during like, yes, baby, you're doing great, or after, like, this was amazing, you did this amazing, this is what I want to change, and this is what I want to add. So I love that you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Mhm. So the ordeal too with giving head to a female, people always say, "Oh, it's too difficult. Oh, it's a mystery." I know men were like, "My jaw hurts." I'm like, "Boy, don't you know? Don't you know? Our jaw hurts too, but we have to take a break sometimes, and that's why we go to kiss you for a second, take a break, and go back down. Use our hands. We change it up." And so I kind of want to talk about just cunnilingus because like it's still a mystery. There's an orgasm epidemic going on with females, and I just really want to dive into that with you. How would we answer to the question of, I have not come ever with any of my partners, and I don't know how to come?
With oral specifically, or just
Oral specifically first, and then we can dive into penetration.
okay? So everybody needs certain types of stimulation. I love the website OMG Yes. You probably have
Yes,
talked
interactive.
about that. Yeah, on your website. I can't remember who sponsors it. It might be Indiana University. It's a university, and they did some research and determined 12 common patternings that women use to get themselves off. And the women talk about themselves, they show their body. It is explicit, it's sex ed, but
Yeah,
it's not,
the right way.
yeah, it's not pornographic. There's a good sense of humor. Women are openly talking about their bodies. Um, so, first of all, knowing how your body works, the clitoris is that's where the pleasure is. That's the organ that's homologous to the penis.
Hmm.
It's erectile tissue and gets erect when there's arousal. And then when there's orgasm, the blood flows back out of the pelvis. So, that's where the orgasm occurs. Some women, so A, getting to know your own body on how to get yourself off, how to have an orgasm.
Hmm.
Women who are most likely to orgasm with a partner know how to do it themselves first, then they can teach their partner how to do it. And sometimes with oral sex, the type of direction and pressure can be replicated, and so that can work. But for some people, it's not the right type of it just not is not the type of stimulation that's going to work for their body, and that is okay.
Yeah.
I think we get into this hierarchy of orgasms. In other
Okay.
words, that the most ideal, like I hear so many women who are like, feel flawed. Like, I really want to do like what I've seen forever on TV, like women come by penetration.
Penetration. Hmm.
Yeah. And I feel like, why can't I do that? It's like, because that's your body, because
That's how you were made.
that's 99% of women.
Yeah. And then that's the stigmatization, though. That's the mystery that they put behind it. They think that, oh, I don't work. My vagina doesn't work because I didn't come. And we have this just stupid ideal that sex isn't sex if you didn't come at the end of it. And men too are super obsessed with females coming. It's like they can't understand that we can still have a good time if we didn't come. That's very, very true. And females are like, well, I don't know if I came. Nothing came out. So how would you kind of talk about that ideal of that nothing came out type of mentality?
Yeah, you mean like female ejaculation?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's something that can happen, and some people are like, I'd like to try to see if my body can do that.
Yeah.
That generally comes through, stimulation of the G spot, and
Mm-hmm.
the fluid comes out of the Skene's glands,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not pee. But some women like their G spot stimulated. Some women find it kind of painful. Some women don't really feel much at all, and some women can ejaculate. Some women are not, they're just, bodies just don't do that. It can happen during penetration. Sometimes it's more fingering or a toy or vibration. A lot of bodies just, they have to have a vibrator. That's just the
Yeah.
only way they can get off, or that's the only way they can squirt. But the thing is if you can or can't, again, there's no hierarchy behind that. Fluid does not even necessarily mean you've had an orgasm. There's not, in the research, there's not a it's not correlated. Like, some women squirt, but that's not their orgasm.
Yeah. Exactly.
So,
Yes, it
but
does
on
make sense.
porn, it is.
porn, it says that every woman is squirting. Like, they say that squirting is coming, and it's like, no, 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 you can squirt and come. Like, it's the same, not the same thing. You know what I mean? Like, you
Not the
can
same.
have an orgasm and squirt. So that is just that's a part of the orgasm epidemic, and then the frustration of it, and it's in mainstream media. Women are seen as complicated, and it's like, it's just so frustrating. And you talked about the vibrator idea and how some women just need it. So how do you, if say a woman in a heterosexual relationship is saying, I really want to use a vibrator and I don't know how to ask my partner without him feeling like it's his enemy, how would you tell a woman to approach this situation?
Yeah. Well, that's kind of back to sex ed. It's kind of like a hammer's not going to do everything. Like, why use a hammer when there's like power drills?
Yeah.
They're just as effective. It just gets the job done quicker. But so you will not get desensitized from using vibrators. They don't desensitize the tissue. You don't get addicted to them. You don't get reliant on them. What happens is people discover, oh, this is a super reliable way to have an orgasm.
Thank you for
That's
mentioning
the
that.
only way I can finally have an orgasm. So great. That's fantastic. It's however people determine whether it's laying on your belly or laying on your back or laying on your side or rubbing up against a pillow or humping your hands. I mean, kids learn a lot of different ways to pleasure themselves, and then
Mhm.
those patterns kind of can continue into adulthood. No harm, no foul. I mean, however it works, however it works. But we we don't have any sex ed, so we don't know sometimes that the way people get off is normal. Vibrators feel good on all bodies. There are cock rings, there are prostate vibrators, there are
Mhm.
vibrators you can hold in your hand that can be used on all body parts for all bodies, and they can feel really pleasurable unless someone has, some people have like sensory processing things or just overloaded with sensation. So it's too much. Some people need a vibrator that's very, very light. Some people need a vibrator that's really got high settings, you know,
Yep. All
and
bodies are different.
all bodies are different and it's all normal.
Yeah. And I think that is the main question and the main part of the problem with the orgasm epidemic. And that also ties into males as well, implementing sex toys more. And I wish in the future, I hope in the future that males are more comfortable adding in, cock rings. I always mess with my man a little bit. He loves it now. But like, I'll take my vibrator and like put it on his gooch, like that spot in between, the anus and shaft, and or his balls rather. And he loves it. And he's like, oh, oh, oh. Sometimes he's a little weird about me going around his ass, which I understand, and I approach it the best way I can. But I think adding in sex toys, I always say it is not your enemy, it is your ally. It is your ally. Please. Sex is supposed to be explorative. And sex toys give you that in, and to be like, oh, wow, this feels good. This feels good. Oh, wow, that doesn't. For me, I don't like vibration internally, but I like vibration externally. So that is something that I wouldn't have known if I didn't explore it.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, it's unfortunate when somebody, I think, sees a toy as a threat. It's kind of
Yes.
this egocentric,
Mhm.
and it's actually just there's like a whole plethora of ways to be creative and to have sensation. It's just another type of sensation.
Yeah.
You can even use a vibrator when you're like if you're giving a blowjob, you can put the vibrator on your cheek, which transfers to your tongue,
Great idea.
and
Great.
they feel it because they're inside your mouth. So that's another creative use of a vibrator.
That is a really good idea. Oh my
Yeah,
god, I never thought of that.
yeah,
Oh wow, thank you for that. I will use that one.
yeah.
So when we're talking about just like sex as a whole too, I think going into like the homosexuality and just those types of dynamics, there's that myth that women just scissor and men just jackhammer each other, and I hate that. And I think that ties into like that political landscape of sex and gender. I'm reading a book right now called Life is Not Binary. It is an amazing book. I'll link it down below. But it goes into the ideals that I have struggled to explain to individuals, whether on whatever political party you are, is that in the United States of America, we categorize everything. Everything has to be this or that or this. And it's very frustrating. And in other cultures, we don't really, there's not really that societal norm in other cultures. It's just you are who you are. So can you tell me how you think misogynistic ideals and patriarchy impact genders and sexualities as a whole?
Huge.
Yeah, I know.
It's inseparable. There's Tina Shermer Sellers is a sex therapist in Seattle. She wrote a book called Sex, God, and the Conservative Church. And she was noticing a lot of her students were coming in with, like, she was seeing more and more sexual shame as more people were influenced by the purity culture. So she went back into looking at Christianity, like, where did this come from? That sex is wrong and sinful. So what she determined is during the time of Constantinople, a group of male monks got together and determined that the way to have access to God is through denial of the body. And that's when the split occurred in the church, that sex is bad and should be avoided at all costs. And, sex is bad, pleasure is bad. Before then, there wasn't really mention in the church that people should be chaste or that sex was dirty. Then Christian values, those puritanical Christian values, got embedded in laws, in our policies, and our schools, and our health insurance. Like, there's one federal policy, I take insurance, and last year they stopped covering any sexual diagnosis. They just cherry picked those diagnoses out. No explanation why. They wouldn't give me an explanation.
Yes.
To move up the ladder, and they're like, we just don't cover it. And I'm like, I think I know why, because it's that. We
Right
don't.
back to the system.
And yeah, we know if people are trying to have healthy sex, we're just not going to cover it and support it.
Yeah, vaginismus is seen as a mental health disorder under insurance.
Vaginismus, yes.
Yep, yeah. That's the concerning part. That's completely patriarchy. That's completely the bullshit.
Yeah, right. Or that it's always connected to trauma, which is not true.
Yep. Some people just have vaginas that have more pain. We just talked about that earlier, and that is okay. And that, again, goes back to sex education. But sex education in our schools is fucked up by the system. And that comes full circle.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's frustrating. How do you think, though, we can give like practical tips and just steps to completely deconstruct this patriarchal system, and like how we can just lead to a more healthier and a fulfilling ideals according to this? How can we just reconstruct this as a whole? And do you think?
Can I bring up another pattern that I see a lot?
1000%.
Which is even more insidious. So when we live in a patriarchal culture where men are discouraged from connecting to their emotions. So emotions are, I'm not saying they're not bad people. It's the system that raises boys in a way that they're discouraged from feeling their feelings unless they are, and connecting emotionally, unless they are observing sports, participating in sports, or having sex. So sex can become a way of connecting, but it can also become a way of regulating their nervous system.
Yeah.
Of stress management. So then they grow up, get into relationships with women, and if they're not having sex regularly, that's a nervous system management. So then the availability of her body has to be available as a prescription to manage his stress and his anxiety and his depression. And if it's not, there's tension in the relationship. She then starts wanting sex less, and he's super frustrated. He has no clue and is not aware that the sex has become a medication, so to speak, a prescription for his regulation of his nervous system, because no one's talks to guys about this. Women are really aware of it, but then they're having duty sex. So the sex is bad for her. The sex is bad for him. This is all because they're good people. I'm not saying I'm saying this, and a lot of men will get probably really defensive because that's what happens.
Yeah.
This is due to a patriarchal system that's informing how people show up in the bedroom, how they show up in their own sexuality, how they're dealing with their emotions. And it comes out in the relationship. And I would say that's one of the biggest patterns I see that's caused from the patriarchy, that and emotional labor.
You just like completely mind fucked me because I mean, that's oh my God, like that's so damn true. We as women are prescribed medication for men's nervous system. That is so true. That like that concept of blue balls, obviously it's real, but there's another ways to put that frustration aside. That is just, oh my gosh. Wow. Thank you for sharing that because that is real. That is real. That is something we do not think about.
It really is real. And it's a tough and a tender thing to talk about, right? Because it's a form of misogyny.
Wow.
It's a form of misogyny that comes in heterosexual relationships.
How do you think this affects sex therapy for you when you have couples coming in and you have this male that has an ideal of misogynistic and then this woman who's fighting just to have good sex and just is tired of prescribing the same medication over and over again? How do you handle this? How is this affecting it?
That dynamic has to be addressed.
Okay. Yeah. So
Yeah,
you
because sex is something you do within the context of the relationship. So those underlying currents in the relationship, whether it is emotional labor, and in heterosexual relationships, women bear the burden more of emotional labor. It affects their cortisol and adrenaline, which turns off the desire areas in their brain. Then they don't want sex because they're exhausted and they're stressed out and they're taking care of all the things, you know.
Yeah. So
And
you just kind of work with them to deconstruct those ideals and work together to fix them.
yeah,
I love that. So important, but so difficult.
it's so difficult. And women see it. Women generally see it and know that that's happening even before they hit my door.
Yep.
Not always, but in general, guys are the last to see it.
And why do you think that is? Because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the majority of the times, it's usually the woman in a heterosexual relationship that decides to come to sex therapy, and the male just joins along to please her. Is that correct?
Mm,
Or is that my own opinions there?
yeah, no. When couples come in, they're both in distress. I've had some men come in who are like, they're like, I just want to understand how she ticks. You're a woman, like I
Aw.
understand. It's really sweet.
Oh,
It's like I'm just trying to figure out how to be a better partner. I want to figure out how to communicate. It's really, yeah,
that
yeah,
makes me so happy.
yeah. Or figure themselves out. They're maybe using porn in a way that is also like stress management, and they're
Mhm.
just trying to figure out some how they can have a healthy relationship with erotic media.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. That like the porn addiction, that's a whole nother topic I think we can dive into on a different day.
Yeah,
That is a huge part of this issue. Huge, definitely. The patriarchy definitely hops on top of that, and oh my God, oh my God, I could go on that forever. We talked about that earlier too, is that squirting thing, like, oh, that's what it means when a woman comes, and this is what you're supposed to say, and this is what a blowjob is supposed to look like. You're supposed to
yeah,
jackhammer it down her throat. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, boys learn about this is in the research. Boys learn about their sexuality through self-exploration. Their penis is right there. They see it all the time, several times a day. Our parts are, more neatly tucked in. A lot of women have shame. They don't pull out a mirror. They haven't seen their parts. So it's not uncommon for girls to learn about their body through boys as they start dating. And this isn't, heterosexual relationship. Boys learn about it through self-exploration. So a common pattern I see is women hit their 30s and their 40s, and they're like, I don't even care if I want sex.
Mhm.
I don't know what I want. He's asking me. He's willing to do anything. I have no clue. Women skip this important developmental stage of self-exploration, not just of touching, but the erotic fantasies, erotic style, erotic orientation. What type of vibe do you need your partner to show up in that would be seducing and a turn on versus like the boob grab or something that would be like,
Honk, honk.
honk, honk, right? The boob honk. So, and that's another piece in sex ed. People don't talk about initiation, about flirting. There are definitely coaches, probably people like you. There are people that teach classes on flirting, how to initiate. It's so important because sometimes people initiate in a way that turns their partner off, which is the last thing they want.
That's so funny because I have an episode called Initiation No Boob Honking.
Oh, yeah.
And I literally go over flirting and how to initiate conversations or initiate sex and that whole ideal. So it's funny that you mentioned
Yeah.
that.
I mean, I think people do that because it's playful. And also there can be plausible deniability if they get turned down, which is, I'm just teasing, I'm just joking, right?
Wow, that's a good
Yeah. Yeah. So it's kind of self-protective too, I think, when people approach having sex in that way.
That is a great mindset. Thank you. I love that because I didn't even consider that. It's plausible deniability, kind of like her slapping her ass or grabbing her ass, or like when it's usually when they come up behind you and they like boob honk you. Wow, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah. It's from vulnerability, I think.
Yeah. Kind of continuing on the topic of just taboo, I want to move on to the idea of just questions to Clit-municate. And I want to ask you a couple of myths that I want to debunk or maybe explain further. So the first one is it true that you can break a penis?
You can fracture a penis.
Okay, and how would you do that?
But like if you're having sex rigorously and you
Mhm.
kind of miss, sometimes that happens where
Mm,
you slide out and then you attempt to go in, but you're not at the right angle.
yeah,
And
pop.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. And vice versa, can you hurt the inside of the vagina kind of the same way? Like, can you like break something inside of like like not your hymen, but like your pelvic floor? Like, can that something inside of there break?
That's a good question. Wouldn't think of it as breaking, but bruising, having abrasions,
Okay.
definitely, because it's soft tissue. It's mucosal tissue.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. And then is it true that eating a lot of pineapple changes how we taste?
I think it is. I'm trying to think if I went to a conference once and was it Dr. Corey Babb? Maybe you've had him on here.
Yes, I love him.
That I know I've seen that on a slide. I think it can
Yeah, I
make
think
it,
there's something in it.
yeah, the bromelain or something in it. Yeah.
Yes. Bromelain, I think, right?
I mean,
I
it's
don't know.
worth a try. It's not going to hurt anything if you're not allergic to
Right.
pineapple. Yeah.
Right. I think there's that idea too that like cranberry juice like stops you from having a UTI. It's actually I've debunked that before. It's actually not the case. So there's ingredients inside of pineapple and there's ingredients inside cranberry juice that will help you be able to prevent it, I guess. But there is such things as cranberry pills, and you can take, the bromelain that is inside of pineapple. There's pills like that. But really, to debunk that is you can't just eat an entire pineapple and automatically assume that McDonald's you ate an hour ago is going to go away. Like semen, semen and pussy tastes like semen, and pussy tastes like pussy, and
Mhm.
it's not going to taste like flowers unless you are putting perfume on it, which is going to cause you issues in the long run.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you're a cigarette smoker, that's definitely going to come out in all your
Yeah.
foods. So diet does play a factor. Yeah.
1,000%. And take your vitamins, people, okay? It's meant to help you. That's why they exist. If you have like a vitamin store, like Feel Right is what I have, it will help you. If you
Yeah.
just go in and say, "Hey, what are your sexual health products?" Is that nerve-wracking? Absolutely. Do they hear it a lot? Probably not. But if you come into the store and you ask that, they're going to be ready to answer.
Yeah.
So, what do you think is a sex tip that everybody should know?
Communicate.
Clit-municate.
Clit-municate, yeah, that is the biggest. Get education, read books. If we want a garden, we go to the nursery, we talk to the experts, which plants grow in the shade, which ones need fertilizer. We might get some books. We might watch some things on YouTube. We get information. If you want to cook, you get recipes. You listen to people who are experts in baking or cooking, whatever you're wanting to make.
Yeah.
Education, communication are so key.
Yeah.
And, commonly I'm like, well, how many books do you guys have on sex? Pretty much everybody's like, none, maybe one,
Yeah. Oh my God. My whole entire
Yeah.
library is full of these books.
We're gonna try to figure this out. I mean, when I first did an herb garden and I'm like, I'm just gonna plant stuff. Like half the stuff died.
Yeah.
Like, oh, gotta slow my roll. Gotta get some education first.
Yeah.
So education and communication are huge.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I want to make sure that people can find you. So give me your sneaky links. Where can we find you?
Okay. I've got a website, which is drchristinamcdowell.com. Instagram's the same, drchristinamcdowell.com. And I have a Facebook page. I hardly ever post on there anymore. So it's mostly Instagram, website.
Okay. Thank you so much. Leave us with a sense of encouragement before I let you go.
Oh, everybody has the ability to create the type of sex life that they would like, to be their own sexpert, to have pleasure. Like, we deserve it. Pleasure is our birthright.
Thank you so much for communicating with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
That's it for today's episode. Thank you so much to coming to Talking About the Taboo. So let's get this straight. Sex therapy isn't just about spicing things up in the bedroom. It's about healing, connecting, and unlearning the shame we've been handed for just being like human. It's not dirty. It's not weird. It's definitely not only for broken people. It's for everyone. And when we look at sex through the lens of race, gender, and sexuality, it becomes even more clear why we need to be having these conversations out loud without stigma. I love you all. And with lots and lots of lube, remember, Clit-municate. Mwah.